and training, we provide the service effectively, that you're streamlining all your internal operations, and funders, foundations, whether it's private foundations, services that they're looking to do. The main message, the Ein Zach, the one thing, remember, there's a higher calling. There is accountability that you all have to keep to. If you want to sleep at night, if when you get the call that you're having an audit, that everything, all the ducks are in line and you're ready for that audit. So Miguel at DYCD asked me, Kaya, I want to do a board development governance, up-to-date governance information kind of workshop. I turned to Matt, and thank you, Matt, very much for coming here today on Friday after 12 to prepare and give over to us what we need to know. The Ein Zach, obviously there's a lot of specifics that you're going to learn. With that, I want to just do the placement and make it relevant to you. That's where we at Nonprofit Help Desk come into the picture. And the back is my card. You're going to hear a lot. You're gonna, so I always say it's the elephant. That's how I coach, right? It's the elephant. Now you really hear of what has to happen. The only way we make change is one bite at a time. So in back of my card is always, well, what are my 3 main takeaways of today of what I'm gonna come back to my desk and I'm gonna do? And then you come back to your desk and like, oh, well, how do I do it? DYCD as a funder funds us to help you. We have other funders that fund us to help you. In the case that there isn't funding, we work to help you see to it how we can be of best help to you. So today is the learning. Sit in. There is a paper and pen. Take it in. Take in what Matt is sharing with you. We continue to be a resource for you, and you can fill out the feedback forms in the back. And I'm actually asking that you please do fill out the feedback forms. Miguel is going to collect it if I'm not here to collect them. And my card is there. Be in touch. Let me know how we can help you do your good work better. So now, without further ado, I want to thank Matt once again for making this real. I want to thank Steve who comes to record so that we can have this as a resource and a continued resource of all the valuable information that Matt does prepare. And of course, I want to thank Miguel as the funder for making today a reality. And I thank each one of you that you wake up every morning and you're committed to something bigger than yourself. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you all for coming. I know that I'm competing against the beautiful weather, the time, the oncoming weekend. So I will do my best to keep this light, entertaining, and hopefully informative. I'm an attorney by trade, but I will also try to keep this non-legal to the maximum extent possible. But if I'm going too fast or just being too technical, put your hand up and tell me to slow down. Or to do a better job breaking it down. So just a quick question before we start going. Are all of you board members on existing nonprofits, or are you people who are thinking about setting up nonprofits?
Board members.
Board members? Board members. Anybody not setting up, thinking about it? Okay. Startup phase? Startup. CEO. Okay, cool. So everybody's actively involved now or getting involved. Perfect. Okay. So the topic today is a roadmap to board governance, and I'm really going to try to aim at just sort of the basic considerations that you should have in mind as you are working with your charity and trying to execute your charitable mission. The overarching theme is something that Haya alluded to, and that's accountability. So people trust you, they give you their time, they give you their money. The federal government does not tax you, which is a big thing. And what I would like to do is just talk about the sort of things to help you stay out of trouble, stay worthy of that trust. So A couple of questions to consider for today. So why do people have confidence in nonprofits? What's changed over the past 75 years may cause people to rethink that? And how does someone gain the trust of another? We'll sort of come back to this over and over again. But again, the overarching theme is confidence. Why do people trust you? Why do people want to support you? And what can undermine that? So who's in a nonprofit? Board of directors. The board of directors who carry out the sort of the overarching policy, the officers who execute on that policy, an executive management, if you're a big enough nonprofit, that you have a day-to-day manager. There's a lot of animation in this. We'll try to speed this up. Other employees, sort of people answering the phones, people driving trucks, printing, things like that. Volunteers that every nonprofit pretty much needs. And in some cases, also members. Not every nonprofit has members. And we'll sort of get back to who they may be. So ultimately, out of all of those people, where's the buck stop? Who's ultimately in charge? Board of directors, absolutely right. So the board of directors is the group of individuals that, at the end of the day, is legally responsible for everything that goes on in the nonprofit. They can appoint officers, they can hire employees, they can rely upon the good graces of volunteers and other people, but at the end of the day, it's the board who is in charge and is ultimately responsible. Oh, okay. Now the board of directors is, as a board member, you owe fiduciary duties to the organization. Okay. This is one of my few permitted legal terms for today. Fiduciary duty is made up of two words. First of all, what's a fiduciary? So a fiduciary is essentially someone who acts on behalf of another. And when you're a fiduciary, you typically have to do it with care, candor, loyalty, and the like. But the sort of key idea is that you are acting on behalf of another. Has anybody served as a guardian for someone else? Okay. You might have a young child who you're raising for somebody else. A guardian is a fiduciary. The executor of an estate is a fiduciary. Partners in a partnership are fiduciaries with respect to each other. So sort of any time when you're acting on someone else's behalf, you can be a fiduciary. And then what is a duty? It is an act or a course of action that is required of one by position, social custom, law, or religion. So it's something that you have to do. So a fiduciary duty is a duty that's owed by a fiduciary. So what duties do you owe as a board member? And first of all, who would you owe them to? Who are you responsible for or who are you responsible to as a board member? The community you're serving, the funders. Ultimately, it's the charity, but the charity does not exist in a vacuum. Your charity is there to serve a community. It receives grants or donations from other people, but ultimately, the fiduciary duty that you owe is to the charity. So, first fiduciary duty. Is there a duty to contribute? So if you get on a nonprofit board, is there an expectation that you're going to open up your wallet? No. Ooh, I'm hearing both yes and no. Who thinks yes? Well, you think there's a duty, you're required to do it?
Not required.
Okay. And other people think not? There's an expectation that you will give or that you will be helpful in raising money, that you will approach other people, but it's not a requirement. Nobody can force you to do it. You can't be sued for failing to donate. Something to keep in mind. Yes?
When a funder asks, are your board members active? And then they ask you, could you list their financial contributions? How do you handle that?
There are many ways of being active. You can certainly give money, but as a board member, you're going to be active with your time as well. And you're going to be active in providing guidance, knowledge, experience, inspiring other people, resources. There's a lot of ways of contributing other than just financial.
Yeah, but when they ask, list the financial, their contributions, like the funder would ask you to list.
So are you concerned, so the question is, if a funder is asking that the board members list their contributions, what do you do? I would answer the question truthfully, but if you are concerned that the contributions are not what the funder would want to see, say what else the people are doing. What else the members of the board are doing in order to support the organization. Because there are many ways of supporting. Yes?
Did you put a tag on their in-kind contributions?
I wouldn't try to monetize the amount of time that they're spending. Yeah. I would sort of stress the other things that they are doing. So aside from that, where there is no duty, there are sort of four big fiduciary duties. There's a duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of obedience, duty of oversight. Sounds vaguely like becoming a priest. Or the vows that you take. So let's sort of take these one at a time. So what is a duty of care? What does that boil down to? What is, if you had to sum it up? Just pay attention to what's going on, and then also make informed decisions. So if you take on the responsibility of being a member of a nonprofit board, don't be asleep at the wheel. You have an obligation to go and pay attention and to, when you're making a decision, know why. How about duty of loyalty? What do people think this means? Anyone? Don't make me call on you. Yes.
I think that you shouldn't have a conflict of interest, that the agency and the people should come first.
That's it exactly. So duty of loyalty, it essentially boils down to no conflict of interest. So you are not, say, profiting at the expense of the charity. You're not selling them things at inflated prices, or steering them to contract with a family member, or things like that. The duty of loyalty is one that charities can and do get in trouble with, and that comes up a lot in the news. Obedience. What? So level of commitment. It's a way of viewing it. Anybody else? Following the rules. It's another way of formulating it. So I think by duty of obedience, what I'm getting at here is trying to achieve the charity's mission. So there are rules that you have to follow, and commitments that you have to make. I mean, the charity exists to do a particular thing, whether it's dealing with the homeless or education. There's a mission statement, articles of organization, bylaws, all sorts of things that tell you what you are supposed to be doing, and duty of obedience is actually doing those things.
That seems to be strong language, obedience.
Pardon me?
Obedience seems to be very strong language.
It is strong language, but it caught your attention.
Like what you just described, you have to do it in any job.
You have to do it at any job, but this isn't a job. This is, for many people, this is a volunteer commitment. For probably most of the people in this room, this is a volunteer commitment, but you nonetheless have that duty. So if you're going to take on the responsibility of being on the board, you have to sort of execute the charity's mission. Duty of oversight is pretty similar to duty of care. And it's if you have people other than the board, if the charity is larger than just the sort of core group of individuals, if you have officers, employees, volunteers, staff, you have to supervise what's going on and make sure that it happens. Okay? So, things to consider. We've thought about these before. So, knowing what you're supposed to be doing and what a board member is responsible for doing. So, why do people have confidence in a nonprofit? Is it because they know that that a nonprofit is supposed to act at a higher level? You had your hand up.
Well, maybe because your books are kind of open to the public.
They're very open to the public. We'll get to that later on. They're freely available on the internet. What else? Why else? Knowing that people, yes. Well, that's true. Well, but the capitalist system does sort of depend upon profit motivation. But you're right. Nonprofits are motivated by other things. So yes. Yes.
It's community very often. The community knows where to go to receive from nonprofits. So it's sort of like based in the community, but it also spreads out.
Okay.
If it's national or international.
So they see who you are and what you're doing and the good things that you're doing. So they have confidence in you for that reason. So again, the same question: what's changed recently in order to make people question this?
Confidence in not-for-profit because people are mismanaging money, so sending business to family, and all the other things.
All true. Rare but true. And it's like any other news story where the 99 good actors are ignored, one bad actor is highlighted. And if you're a nonprofit and you don't have a product or a service that people require and you're asking them to give freely to you of their money or time, how do you gain their trust?
Your results.
Results or transparency. There are a lot of ways of doing it. So, do people actually question nonprofits?
They do.
They do. Yes, more animation. So this is a phrase. I mean, lots of people use this phrase, but this is a phrase that someone I work with uses very frequently. That perception is everything. If people perceive there to be a problem, then there is. On the CNN website yesterday or the day before, there was an article about the 50 worst charities in America. And they highlighted all sorts of shenanigans. So charities that spend 3 cents on the dollar for actual charitable purposes, charities that hire professional fundraisers who are related to the people running the charities and pay them a lot of money. All of the sort of bad stuff. It doesn't happen very often. It's not a common problem. But if people are reading about it, thinking about it, dwelling on it, then the bad actors can raise the heat for you through no fault of your own. But nonetheless, it's the bad guys out there can go and make things rough on you. So Congress can and does have this sort of knee-jerk reaction sometimes to things, and will go and react to bad things that are in the news. So there are annual reports that charities have to file, all kinds of them. At the federal level, they're known as Form 990. If you are a broadly supported organization, you get lots of donations from members of the public, you file a 990 or a 990 EZ or it's like filing your income tax return. There are lots of different flavors of it, and lots of levels of complexity. If you're a private foundation, you file something called 990-PF. And a nonprofit is also tax exempt, so it doesn't pay income taxes like other organizations. But it nonetheless has to file this return annually. People, yes?
If your net revenue is under $10,000 and you're a 501c4, you're required to file a 990.
You're a 501c4. You might be in the 990N. Every organization, regardless of revenue, and this is a change in the law that came into effect a few years ago, has to file something. So the very smallest organizations have to file what's called a e-postcard, where you basically check in with the IRS each year and just prove that you still exist. Many small organizations didn't know about this change in the law, inadvertently lost their tax exempt status. One that my wife ran was one of them. But regardless of revenue, you have to file something every year. And I think at that revenue level, it may be 990N. But it's either N or EZ. EZ. So you have to file something every year. And it's technically called an information return. You're not paying a tax, but you're answering all these questions, sort of proving to the IRS what you do. The sort of a theory behind the information return is that it is out there to ask not only basic information about what your address is, your website, who's on the board, but also embarrassing information. And they ask you all of these sorts of questions, and you want to have the right answer to them. Because if you have the wrong answer, and people see you answering the question in the wrong way, and I'll show you some of the questions in a minute, they might question what's going on. So it's an embarrassment return. So let's see. So disclose the number of voting members. This is stuff that it asks. The number of voting members of a governing body, how many of them are independent, how many employees, how many volunteers. What's your mission? What are your specific programs, new programs? Are you getting rid of old programs? What are your 3 largest programs? How much do you spend for each one? Do you have any family or business relationships between any officers, directors, or trustees, or key employees, and any delegation of management responsibilities normally carried out by the board or officers to a management company or other person? So here it's getting a little personal. If you say, why, yes, we have lots of business relationships with members of the board members' families. They provide all of our services, and we pay them handsomely for it. People, maybe they're the low bidder. Maybe they're the best service provider. Maybe they're giving you a cut rate deal on rent, like leasing out part of a building to you at fabulous rates. But if you say yes to this, people might look and say, interesting. That seems strange. Are there members? Do they elect people? Do they elect the board? Let's see. A few more of these sorts of things. Does the governing body review the Form 990 before it was filed, and how do you review it? So you should answer yes to that. Let's say if you answer no. Does that mean that the accountant kind of prepares the annual information return and you say, all right, fine. I trust what the accountant is doing. I'll just sign it I'll just sign this tax return without looking at it. The 990, just let me say, is freely available on the internet. So there are different websites that post this. The one that I go to most frequently is called GuideStar.org. It has free registration, and you can get PDFs of 990s that organizations file. Name your charity. It's there. Yes?
Name of the website?
GuideStar, one word. It'll come up later in the. But if you check no to this question, and someone who is so inclined, they can see the return. They know that you did it. So I have several slides worth of these questions. I'm not going to read them all, but let's just look at one more. So do you have written policies in place, including a conflicts of interest policy, whistleblower, and policies for document retention and destruction. So if you say, oh, we have no conflict of interest policy, maybe everybody is doing things the right way. But again, the way the questions are phrased, they're phrased so that you want to say yes. You want to say yes because you want to look good to the community. Now, all of these questions that it asks, none of this stuff is actually required in order to be a nonprofit. You don't need any of these policies in order to have tax-exempt status or to organize as a nonprofit corporation or a nonprofit trust. This is like gosh, this thing is taking forever. Extra stuff that like Congress and the IRS is like layered on. You don't have to have it. They just want to know. They don't want to like probe in a little bit and see what you're doing. Yes.
For insurance purposes, that's where it comes in handy. When you apply for insurance, they ask you for those items. If you don't have it, I don't know if they.
I bet you're right. You'd get a better rate.
Yeah, you do. Because when I did my insurance, when I first started, I didn't have this stuff. So my insurance guy said, Capital is going to, before you apply, your rate is good.
So he can check off the right boxes on his forms and get you that lower rate.
And for youth organizations like, Sexual Place, Facilitation, all that stuff. If you don't have to have it,
But it sure helps.
it helps.
Yeah, like you don't have to have any of this stuff, but it sure does help. So let's see. So more governance questions. How do you, description of how the organization makes its 990 Form 1093 and governing documents available to the public. This stuff is supposed to be available. Yes.
I just make a comment. I think maybe we make a difference between the articles of incorporation and the bylaws. So people should run and change articles of incorporation. That's what you're asked to do. Rather that you change the bylaws and just submit it to the state afterwards.
Yeah.
What people should be doing. I don't know.
Yeah, and you can also vote on policies as well. They don't have to be hardwired into the bylaws. So, the documents will ask about, in addition to fundraising issues, in addition to governance issue, there's fundraising issues. They want to know, what agreements you have, who you're paying to do fundraising. New York State is actually really focused in on this particular issue. So you can go on the Attorney General's website, and they have a section. Maybe Miguel knows this better than me, but I think it's called Pennies for Charity. What it does is it sort of sorts by both charity and fundraiser and shows how much money the fundraiser raised for the charity and how much of it actually went to the charity and how much the fundraiser kept. And you can search by charitable organization or by fundraising outfit. And you can see, if you give $1 to XYZ organization, how much do they actually get at the end of the day? So compensation issues too, if people are getting paid. The IRS wants to know about it. Too much animation. All right. And miscellaneous, I don't think anyone has an endowment. Information about land, buildings, and equipment. All right. Again, the vast majority of this stuff, not strictly necessary, but practically necessary if you're going to get a good rate on insurance. And if if people are reading up on you, you want to be able to you want to answer the questions in the right way. And you can tell from reading them what is the desired response. Okay. So, why do people have confidence in nonprofits? Is it because they're filling out forms in the right way, or because they're acting in a proper way? They are dotting their I's and crossing their T's. What's changed? That people would go and lose confidence. The internet. You can find out so much more about an organization these days than you could 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Everything that's going on in a charity is at your fingertips. You get all their numbers. How do you gain the trust of another person. Because ultimately, you need the public to trust you. All right. Let's say something comes up. You're running your charitable organization, and there is a problem of one form or another. There's a claim, like there's a slip and fall, or you're in trouble with government agency or something like that. Whose issue is it, and what are you supposed to do? So it depends. Are you a board member? Are you an officer? Are you in the sort of non-officer management of the organization? You're just a volunteer? You know, what happens when there's a problem? So by problem, I mean claim. You know, sort of diverting into the lawyer area. And there are sort of two types of claims that can be made by a nonprofit. So there are claims that are coming from the public, so from individuals. And there are also claims from the government. So either the public is after you or the government is after you. So why would a member of the public sue you? Torts or negligence. So a slip and fall at your facility, or they get injured at a fundraising event that you're having, or they eat, you know, a bad brownie at a bake sale, or something like that. Or you're driving a van for the charity and you crash into them. They can sue you on contract claims too. So if you sign a lease and you don't pay, that lease is a contract. The landlord is going to sue you and say, you owe us money.